We might as well hand the Storm their fifth title in franchise history. No. Okay.
According to a text from
Welcome.
a WNBA GM.
Oh my God, this fucking guy. The season, we're not even like, how far are we into the W season at this point? Like, goddamn.
What, 11
Um,
games?
11
A
games for
fourth.
Seattle.
Exactly a fourth.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Storm Roundtable. It's no longer the Storm Coffee Table when it's just Rowan and I. The whole round table is back. We've moved back. Um, Christian is back. Yeah, we've it's kind of a weirder, I guess, episode just because it's not gonna be. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how long it takes. If you hear me hushed, it's because we're back in the Mariners press box again. So, um, I guess firstly, to get to how we got to Mackenzie Holmes being back, we have to look at the team actually shipping off Li Yueru to Dallas, which, I mean, given Dallas's struggles, like, first of all, best of luck to Li Yueru there. Second of all, I guess isn't the most outlandish thing. I think both Christian and I and Rowan and I had talked about the potential of where she might go. Um, and how maybe Seattle wouldn't want to make Minnesota or Vegas better by sending her to either of those teams, and also what they might have gotten from either of those teams. So, um, yeah, Lee goes to Dallas on 2 days ago, June 14th, Saturday, for a 2026 second round draft pick, and a 2027 third round draft pick. Already seen some of the media availability that she's had. You know, I guess she'd had a lot of friends be like, "Oh, you're gonna play with Paige Beckers." So, I mean, good luck with that. Uh, yeah, I mean, any thoughts on that? I think it's still just tough, the situation that Leah was put in. I imagine she'll get the playing time that whatever powers may be want her to get. Um, but certainly is tough given, the skill set that we saw that she has, right? And what she probably could have been able to provide for Seattle if she had not been getting just 5 minutes, 5 minutes a game. So Christian, since you have returned, my friend, we'll go to you, and then Rowan to you, Rowan, not Bella.
Well, first off, shout out to Lee. I'm happy that she's in a situation that, she'll be able to play in a little bit more. Off rip, she's gonna play because Louisa Gasol-Soder, Tierra McCowan, they're both over in Eurobasket right now. I believe today, actually, Maddie Seegers was diagnosed with a fractured antio something, a big word that I cannot spell. Um, but she will doesn't require surgery. She'll be back at sometime later in the season. I spoke to someone that I know that actually deals with the PT of this kind of these not this kind of injury, but kind of bone injuries that works for sports and stuff. Basically, just like it wasn't bad enough to require surgery to kind of fuse the fragments back together. They're hoping that just let it heal in its own and PT, that everything goes fine. If it doesn't, then they will have to go the surgery route. But this route is technically quicker to get her back on the court. She would have had the surgery. She would probably wouldn't have been back this season. I mean, we're already, a fourth through the season. But that's one of the main reasons why I think the league will play because they're down three pretty, important rotational players in the front court. She can do a lot of different things that will help Dallas, which is why I'm, really happy that she gets to a team that, especially she's going to play immediately because she has to. Like they only have 7 players on the roster right now. So, and I think she's the only true center on the roster now. So yeah, she's gonna get some playing time. Yeah, it's stinky. It's like the cheese from that's a Raven episode and in the air vent. That's the Dallas Wings right now. It's unfortunate injuries, just mistakes, coach kind of just learning the ways. But it is what it is. But again, a situation that Lee plays in it automatically. She goes to Minnesota. I don't know if that happens immediately. So, situation where she plays, that's what you want.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we talked about this. Even it seemed like the Seattle Storm coaching staff were just, they spoke very highly of Lee, and it just felt like, the way that the roster was constructed, she just wasn't going to get a lot of playing time. So it's always nice to see someone go somewhere where they can thrive. And I think, unfortunately, yeah, Dallas isn't doing too well this season so far. I think that they had some pretty high expectations with some of the signings that they had, and unfortunately, just, it takes a lot for a new team to kind of come together. And so, adding someone like Lee, Everyone is learning the system, and I think that she is coming into that Dallas team early enough in the season that she can also be added into the system. And I think it's really good timing. We talked about when she put in the trade request, when was she actually going to get traded? They could have waited until I believe July 13th. Actually, no, I believe the trade deadline is August 7th, I believe. So they could have waited that whole time, but I think that her trade request was honored pretty quickly. She can get into this system where, like you said, she's going to immediately need to be relied on. And I think that we have all seen the things that she can do when she's given playing time. And before the season, I knew a bit about her. I didn't know much about her. I didn't have super high expectations, but after just seeing her in, practice and training camp and the games that we did see her in, I have a lot better of an idea of her game, and I really hope that she can get that playing time in Dallas because she's a really great player and she can bring a lot to that team.
Now, to get to this point, you know, where we've got Mackenzie Holmes, that trade had to happen. So yes, today, the 16th, the Storm have officially brought back forward Mackenzie Holmes. Sorry, I got to go back to my email here. Signed with the team. Do we get clarification on the contract of that? Is it like a rest of season thing? Do we know that? I don't see it in the email.
I saw that it was a rest of season
Yeah.
contract. I think that's what
Okay.
it had on WNBA on the tracker.
Okay. That makes sense. I wanted to make sure I said that right before I just start throwing things out there. You know how it be on this around here, People just say things.
She's on an R
Um,
shift, not an ROS. And it's like, buddy,
get it
whoa,
right.
whoa,
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's like, is your parlay riding on that? If I say that or not, let's calm down.
It's a second
Um,
bed joke.
yeah. Um, yeah. So I was okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Christian had some great thoughts on this in our group chat. I was fast asleep at like till 1 p.m. when this happened. The news came out at 9:15 in the morning. I think Christian had shared the quote pre-game ahead of the Golden State game, as well as, when this happened, that Seattle planned on signing somebody before their next game, which is tomorrow, the 17th, against the Los Angeles running Kelsey Plums. Um, I mean, they get the most out of Kelsey Plum. So, yeah, no, I mean, it's been said how often like Kelsey, not Kelsey. Well, yes, her game too, but Mackenzie Holmes's game. Um, it'll be interesting. Like Rowan and I, before we started recording here, we're talking about Mackenzie Holmes's preseason showing against Connecticut and realizing that it's preseason, but you know, I think it was 9 boards, 3 blocks in that game for Mackenzie Holmes. Um,
9 points, 8 rebounds.
oh wow,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So, I mean, instant offense, and I think we did a reaction to that game. But I was like, hey, I mean, just watching her play, like she was all over the court. It's not like she was just stagnant. Like there was good energy there, and I mean, we're gonna go back to this. We're gonna have to talk about this when we look at this Golden State game. But you talk about rebounding and energy and effort. You know, for those of us who have been around the Storm, who have heard the press conferences with Noelle Quinn the last few years, rebounding has been an issue. She's talked about it being a mentality thing, an effort thing. We've heard the effort word thrown around a lot the last 2 years with this team, right? And Mackenzie Holmes will give you that at minimum, in addition to being, a pretty solid scorer for her to be Indiana's all-time basketball, not just women's all-time basketball leading scorer, right? So, Christian, since you had some good thoughts on this in our group chat, and about how she could be used and how she might help, I'll have you go first again. Sorry, Road Dog, and then we'll have Rowan go after that. But I don't know. I think it makes sense. I know there was some thought that Rowan and I had in our Storm coffee table that maybe they go guard, just given the disappointment with the trade they made for a guard. But yeah, I'll let Christian get his thoughts out on this.
Yeah, in the Slack chat, I think, or a text or a cannon. Um, we populate each one pretty often. But yeah, I just didn't think that they're going to go to guard because, coaches said a couple times this year, especially going back to why Dominique Malonga hasn't played a lot or why Li Yueru wasn't playing a lot, is because teams are going small and they don't really have personnel to do so. I think now, though, with 11 games to play, I think she's seen enough from Dom to be able to run a real three big lineup out there with her plus Ezzy and Nneka, or Ezzy Nneka plus Mac. Mac can shoot a little bit in the mid range. I mean, that's what she did pretty much her entire career at Indiana. We've seen that a little bit in that preseason game when she was like, Kim, I think I tweeted about it. I was like, yo, she hasn't played in over a year and a half, and she looks like she's been practicing and playing like she hasn't missed any time. So I think that'll play into the part of being able to go small. I mean, she's not really small at 6'3.5", almost 6'4", but she has the fluidity and the bounce in her step to be able to keep up with some faster threes or fours. Let's say like, a team throws out trying to think. Who's a three? Let's say like a Beck Allen. I'm pretty sure Mackenzie Holmes can stay in front of a Beck Allen, a player like that. It's a starting small forward now. So yeah, that's probably one of the main areas we see her, and also just in those non-NECA minutes, like they've been pretty bad when it's just Ezzy by herself, and Ezzy's got a lot of flack, and I will say some of it is warranted because of the offensive production, but when there's not a true depth behind her as a true center. Like I think we're pretty sure now that Dom is a forward, right? NECA's a forward, but there are no real centers on the roster. Ezzy has kind of been pushed into that because of her height, being 6'4", 6'5", which I understand that. But Mac comes onto the team. She was a real center and she played power forward. She played even some three in college. So I think she has the ability to be able to do whatever really is asked of her, which will come sooner than later, I think.
Yeah, I mean, when we were at training camp, now what was that, a month ago? That definitely seemed like what Noah Quinn and her coaching staff wanted that role to be for Mackenzie. It seemed like they were really working on that mid-range kind of, elbow free throw line type offense. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they play her in the way that they've been playing Dom a little bit. They also, I remember in the few practices that I went to when Mackenzie was still on the roster, they were really trying to practice her scoring through contact, like on the block and all of that. And so it seems like they are clearly happy with the way that, they pushed her in training camp and the way that, she performed, but obviously she didn't make the opening day roster. But it seems like this was kind of a perfect thing for them. They had so much praise for Mackenzie Holmes, so it's exciting to see her back, and it's really exciting. Like you said, it is a preseason game. It's also against a team that we now, can see as one of the lower teams in the league right now. Against Connecticut. However, shooting 4 for 5 from the field, 9 points, 8 rebounds. So you're, pretty close to a double double and 3 blocks in your, WNBA debut after sitting out a year is a pretty impressive stat line regardless. And so I think that I'm really excited to see what she can do now in the regular season. I follow her on TikTok, so I've seen that she's been working out a lot back in Maine. So she seems ready to go and she seems excited. And so that is very exciting. I think that we kind of mentioned it. Chuck kind of mentioned it, but we've been talking a bit about the bench production, and I think that when we look at just offensively, we've talked about how that's been a growing concern of ours when you have your leading scorers as also your most relied on players. When you have Gabby Williams averaging, what did I say? It's something like 36 minutes a game or something. I had the exact number in our coffee table, but I can't remember now. But I think that, when you have a bench that isn't producing offensively, I think it's a good call to try someone new. And I really hope that Mackenzie Holmes can be that offensive spark off the bench because, like you said, we've seen how she can do that in Indiana. And we know that she used to be, I mean, I was refreshing my memory on her college stats, and, she averaged what, 19, yeah, she averaged 19.8 points per game in her senior season, 22 in her junior season. this could be someone that could bring a real spark off the bench for the Storm, and they really, really need that. So again, I think Lee asking for a trade has kind of been, a bit of a blessing in disguise for them so far. We'll see if it happens, but just being able to bring in someone that could potentially fit better into the offense with just her versatility. Um, Again, in training camp, all they were emphasizing was versatility, versatility, and one of the people that they mentioned in that was Mackenzie Holmes. I also wanted to mention too that I think, we've talked a lot about how sad it is that Jordan Horston is not on this roster this year, and how, when you look at Gabby Williams and you look at how many minutes she is averaging right now and how much she's doing for the team, we saw so many glimpses of Jordan being, that could be that, like we saw her coming into that same role and really taking after Gabby. And so I think that someone like Mackenzie Holmes seems like kind of one of those, just athletic, kind of just all over the place player that can, get a lot of different categories in the stat sheet. And, I think that we're again sad that Jordan is not here this season, and it would be really great if she was someone that could back up Gabby. But I think that, Mackenzie Holmes seems like a really great fit for right now if they're looking for a backup for Gabby who's, really versatile.
Yeah, no, it'll be really interesting to see how that works because, we talked about it, both as a strength and as a weakness, right? When this roster was finalized for opening day, opening night, was that, they're they're kind of they're a big team, right? They're going to be a big team. Um, and that can be a good thing when utilized properly and when you're playing teams who maybe can't handle that. But obviously, with the amount of teams that are going small, it makes it tough, and it puts you a situation where you don't use those players, right? Like, how often did the situation call for them to truly use Li Yueru? I don't know. I thought there were maybe some situations that they could have used her more, but again, like, is he getting four fouls? And then you're just like, okay, ride it out. Uh-oh, we're raising hands again.
I
Uh,
tried to find the raise hands feature and I couldn't, so I just raised my own hand. I was just gonna say, you mentioned it briefly, but the stat that I had pulled up that I hadn't seen, we know that rebounding has been an issue for the Storm. We know it's continued to be an issue, but I didn't realize that it was so much of an issue that they are 12th out of 13 teams in rebounding this season, only in front of Connecticut. So ironic that we're talking about that, but I would just like to really emphasize that right now because I knew it was bad, but I didn't know it was that bad.
yeah, man. I mean, again, like we have heard if you've heard Noel Quinn press conferences, you've followed the Storm the last few years, you know that rebounding's been an issue, you know. So I don't think Mackenzie Holmes will fix that. It was interesting hearing, Christian asked, it was AC and Ezzy during the last post game. Christian was like, hey, it was basically just about the discrepancy in rebounding because I think what the stat was that Seattle had 20 boards on the game and it was the lowest since 2013, something like that. Um, and AC was just like, oh, they rebounded more. I was like, that's not helpful. Like,
Especially not if it's happening at a historical rate. You get out
yeah,
rebounded for the first time or that majority in 12 years, and we're just kind of like laughing it off. I mean, that's not gonna cut it when you go up against teams like, a resurgent Aces team or Golden State. Like that's what happened against a team that everyone didn't think would be good this year. It's not gonna cut it against Minnesota. It's not gonna cut it against a team like New York. But like again, there is upper echelon of the WNBA, but there's also a hierarchy. It's Minnesota, the Liberty, and everybody else. Where Seattle has to get in where they fit in, you have to rebound the ball. You have Nneka
yep,
Ogwumike, Ezzy McGregor, Dominique Nwagwu on the team, now Mackenzie Holmes. There's no excuse not to rebound the ball. Rebounding the ball 20 times in one game, they had eight at the half.
Jesus.
I'm sorry. That's inexcusable for a bunch of professional players and four Hall of Famers on this team.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think
I
there's four on
mean,
this team. Yeah. I had to count. I was like, wait. Yeah, Alicia Clark.
I was like, oh yes, Zaya Cook. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Hey, you never know.
One
Yeah,
day.
no, I mean, just yeah, that's where I mean one of the things that I'm aware of, and I think this will transition into the Golden State game, is just teams like that. They're new, maybe they don't have a ton of chemistry. They don't have a, I don't think they have a defined identity quite yet, right? But as long as you hustle and you play hard, like that will sometimes punch teams in the mouth.
And you're all in, all the time.
Okay.
I just don't understand how you go from sixth in the WNBA. At some point last year, they were top three in rebounding to last. This is almost the same team in the front court. Like
Yeah.
we've been saying, this is one of the better benches that Seattle's had in a while, right? As far as depth
Hmm.
in the big department, where somebody has to explain the follow-ups to me because no one else is.
Yeah. No, I mean, oh, that goes to like, what do you? I feel like we've talked about it before, but what do you think it is? What do you guys think? Is it an effort thing? Is it because I don't think it's the players. I don't think it's not like Seattle's comically small. They're not, in terms of the rebounding situation. Because again, Noel Quinn has mentioned it being a mentality thing for rebounding, right? Whether it's, guards crashing the board so often, and I'll use Li Yueru as an example again. I would see Climate Pledge Arena in front of the media seating. I would see Li Yueru being the only one in the paint in a bunch of white jerseys to get a rebound. I'm like, that's just not that. Like, no shit, you're not getting rebounds. I'm going to use my swear word. No shit, you're not getting fucking rebounds because you've got one player trying to rebound here, and it's almost like you're playing four out, like, which they're not always doing, but I don't know. So, well, and then I've asked, I was like, hey, like, you've mentioned it being a mentality thing. Are you not seeing that mentality from your team? And she gave me kind of a non-answer. So I don't know for either of you, if you've got strong opinions on it or thoughts, what is wrong with Seattle's rebounding? Because again, it's not like you're comically small, or as if they don't, have talented players to go and get the fucking basketball. And they're not making all their shots. So you can't use that example as not getting rebounds because they're certainly not making all their shots.
I had some suspicions, but I need to actually look at the stats to back it up. I'm trying to as fast as I can. I mean, I was thinking about it, we've talked about Gabby Williams, taking on different roles. And if I before looking at the stats, I think I would say that, we know that she's being relied on a bit more offensively this season. Also, sorry if there's like a lawnmower in the background of my audio. Do not know what that is. Um, but I mean, so far, very quickly looking at it, it looks like she's only averaging zero point 0.1 less rebounds than she was last season. I mean, she's averaging double the amount of career points or double her amount of career average points, but rebounds, she's averaging the same amount as the rest of her career. So I guess I was just looking to see if maybe with this new offensive role, maybe the rebounds are lacking a little bit, but yet again, she impresses us. Actually, that stat, I mean, none of her stats have dropped. All of them have stayed the same or increased her career averages versus this season. So I'd have to look into a little bit more. I also would have to look into, were more guards rebounding last season? Were there more, is that a problem that we're not seeing, maybe we're seeing all the rebounds this year coming from, the post players, which is very important, but also yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough right now, but those are my suspicions.
So off rip, I was listening to the Golden State broadcast. You know, they tried. It's their first season together, so of course it's gonna be some rough issues, right? But it kind of just reminded me, like, Dick fan of Elise Wood, where everybody hates the homerism, but everybody loves when Seattle's broadcast is on the League Pass because, oh my God, big fan, he's so entertaining. I was like, I thought you guys didn't like him because he's a homer, right? I mean, he's employed by the Seattle Storm. I would hope that he's,
Thank you. There's a big
they
difference
sign his
between
checks.
I don't get me started. Don't get me started.
But the Golden State broadcast brought up one stat that Seattle is the only team in the league that is top three in points off turnovers, points in the paint, and fast break points. So I was just thinking about it last year, and I was like, okay, well, this year they allow the fourth most points in the paint, right? Last year they allowed the third to fourth fewest, and they were always bouncing between there. They were never below 5 for the entire season. So it's like little incremental changes in your approach to play the game than where you were last year, which is kind of why some departments are kind of curtailed. Like we're only 11 games into the season, and Noel Quinn's already talking about effort and heart and hustle after that Golden State game. Like that's not a good sign to me. Again, 6-5, it's not bad. I mean, there are a lot of other teams that would kill for a 6-5 record right now, but those teams aren't didn't come to the season, banging their chest as championship contenders. So that's another kind of thing to look at, or a wrinkle as far as this team's approach.
Yeah, and bringing up 11 games in, yeah, there's a long season to go, longest season in WNBA history, right? So it is just going to be very fascinating to see how they, navigate these things, learn. I've mentioned this. I mentioned it after the big win against Minnesota, right? I was like, this is great. This should be a foundational piece. This shouldn't be, let's pop confetti now. And I don't think anybody thought they would, but obviously that sort of game, that sort of effort, that sort of performance did not carry over into the Golden State game. So now we have to address that elephant in the room. Because man, I mean, you talk about taking out an undefeated team that's coming off a finals appearance and looks remarkably good. Um, to a Golden State team that is an expansion team. I mean, I think they were the fastest expansion franchise to reach 5 wins in WNBA history, so that's cool, I guess. Um, you know, and expansion teams are never just going to be a bunch of low grade talent, but given the win over Minnesota at home and how that game had looked, um, you'd hope Seattle had kept momentum rolling to keep things going. And as Christian mentioned, there's New York, there's Minnesota, there's everyone else. It is up to you. And Seattle is hypothetically in the driver's seat after that. And again, there's a long time from now until the postseason. But you beat Minnesota. You had pushed them pretty hard in the road game against Minnesota. You will get a chance to play the Liberty here pretty soon. Um, they've played some good teams. They've beaten the Mercury 2 out of 3 times. They're still without Kalia Copper. They were out with Alyssa Thomas, good chunk of games, right? So I will acknowledge that, but that Golden State game, it needs to be talked about. It needs to be looked at. I know Christian was on it. I was actually here. Uh, so what did you see from that? Because that's really frustrating, and it's obviously with Noel Quinn, with AC, with Ezzy, like the frustrations were shared, from those that were actually in the locker room. And I don't know if Rowan saw it. So if you did, you can let me know. But I know we previewed it. So Christian, I'll go to you what you saw with this Golden State game. And then Rowan, if you've got anything on it.
I mean, the first half is probably one of the ugliest halves of basketball I've ever seen in Seattle Storm play. It's really just that simple. Going into the game, Mo Quinn said that I think it was I can't remember who asked the question, but basically she was asked, a team that has so many international players, they're away in Eurobasket, does that make it harder to kind of scout the Valkyries? Noel said yes, it does. Essentially, we can't really focus about that or focus on that. We have to play our game and start strong. But Seattle really hasn't started strong in too many games to start the season so far. So you go into that game, and it's kind of mayhem from the start, you know, and it really never gets better until that second half of the third quarter, where it's like, okay, there's some life in this team, but as it always happens down the stretch, more times than not, it kind of just fell apart. I mean, I can go back and look at the fourth quarter box score and just the flow of it itself. There just was no real chemistry. I mean, you're back in the game, right? It was a winnable game, and then it just wasn't. I know Rowan has a little bit more on that, but just overall, one of the worst performances they've played in a while, and I think they know that. Like this is probably worse than the season opening loss to Phoenix, and they only scored 51 points, I think. 58 points. So yeah, this loss is worse than that.
Yeah, I mean, when I previewed it in our coffee table, I was, saying that it was so hard to preview this game because one, the Valkyries have just kind of come out of nowhere. I don't, like you said, I don't think anyone expected them to be having the season that they do, and in my opinion, that's a tribute to Natalie Nakase's, coaching. I think that she has been great for them, and also, I think seeing the way that she's been able to assemble basically whole second team, while so many are away at Eurobasket and still beat, a team that just took down, the undefeated team. It's really it's hard when a team like the Storm is just so up and down. And you're right. I think that coming off of the Minnesota game, you would think that there was kind of a confidence there. And I would expect if I was just looking at the score, I probably would have expected that, who knows, maybe they had a good first half and then a worse second half. But instead, it was the complete opposite. And you'd think that that confidence from the beginning would be, would fuel them through that first half. But I mean, they were outscored, in the first two quarters, and they managed to outscore the Valkyries, 20 to 12 in the fourth quarter, but it, wasn't enough. And I think the biggest stat line that I noticed, I was watching the game, but sometimes when you go and look at the, actual box score later, things stand out. And, points in the paint have been huge. And, I think just emphasizing that the Valkyries, outscore the Storm in points in the paint 46 to 26. And that can't be happening. I think that we've heard a lot that that's something that they're priding themselves on right now is being able to score in the paint, especially when we've seen them struggle from three, has been looking a little bit better. Definitely, it doesn't feel like it's all Gabby anymore. But I think that you can't, like you said, you can't have a team outscoring you in the paint by 20 points when you have players, you have multiple all-star, posts, and you have players like Erica Wheeler, Skylar Diggins that, can get to the rim and score in the paint. That is just not a great look. I think that I don't even know what else to say about it. Just like you said, Christian, it just was a really, it just was a really ugly game. I think that again, like, yeah, I know that this is always what the coaches say, but what do they say when they're like, oh, credit to the Valkyries for, for this win, not trying to criticize themselves. But I think really, credit to Natalie Nakase because I think that, bringing in this whole roster, this whole new roster, really threw the Storm off, it felt like. And, but they need to be able to adjust to things like that. You never know who's going to be signed on a hardship, what team is going to have injury problems and have a whole new roster. And your scouting can only do so much. You also need to be able to produce offensively. And I think that just did not happen in that first half. And, I guess on the bright side, there clearly were some adjustments made to be able to outscore Golden State in the fourth quarter and, also to only, score one less point than them in the third quarter. But still, I don't think that it clearly wasn't enough. And we clearly are still seeing that there needs to be something different offensively to get them to produce.
Rowan, I got your stat for you as far as the rebounds.
Okay, thank you.
It's not pretty. You sure you want to know it? I mean, um,
I mean,
so
like I just said, the Valkyries game was not pretty.
I was thinking about I think you said guards versus the forwards, right?
Hmm.
As far as rebounding, right? So I was thinking about it. I was like, well, what if I just look at the starters versus the bench? You want to guess where last year's bench was as far as rebounding?
Probably in the ground.
Actually, it was top five.
Really? Oh, okay.
It
Never
was
mind.
around fifth and sixth. It was around fifth and sixth for most of the season. It was right above Minnesota too,
Hmm.
right below Minnesota.
Well, it is
They're
interesting.
second to last now.
I did see in my quick search, Jewel averaged 4.5 rebounds last
Jordan had
year.
like 4.5. Yeah.
And Skylar's averaging about the same, as she did last year. Well, I mean, she had 2.6 last season and she's at 2.2 this season. But then you think about Skylar and Jewel, and so their total would have been what, about 7 rebounds a game. But then you have Erica Wheeler, who is averaging the most of her career right now of 3.3. So if you add Skylar and Erica, it is a lower average than, than the than the, yeah, I don't know.
But like when your bench is averaging the second fewest rebounds in the league, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, right? So NECA, Gabby, um, Erica, yeah, I was about to say Alicia, Erica, NECA, and then Ezzy, right? So then that means you have Lexi Brown, Zaya Cook, um, don't have Max Stats yet, but Alicia Clark and Dominique Malonga. That's it. So off rip, that's two, 3.5, 4.5, 5, 6.2 from your bench. That's terrible. Per game, that is terrible. And I don't think anyone could have foreseen this coming to the season.
No, I certainly didn't. I mean, so again, things can change, right? This is the first 11 games of this season for Seattle, but yeah, I mean, it's just you want to talk about the way that I think of this is, you know, and I'm not trying to guarantee anything, right? But every championship level team will have losses that they need to learn from. They'll have their big wins that show their championship medal, so to say, right? Like this is a game that they will need to respond to. Um, you know, uh, I got to check Los Angeles. I know they haven't been the greatest, but you'll play what Los Angeles, and then you've got an interesting stretch. You've got LA, Vegas, right? And then the Liberty. It's not easiest stretch in the world. I mean, but I'm really intrigued to see how they'll respond to that. If we go through these next few games, and as Christian admit, 8 pours in the first half, that is painful. You see something like that again in any of those games, we got problems. Like again, this goes back to what we've talked about on the Storm Roundtable is are these six trends? Is this who they really are? Or is this a flash? Like I feel like the rebounding thing, mm, it's interesting to hear the numbers that you guys have brought up there, right? But I feel like the rebounding issues just continuously hearing, hey, this we need more effort, we need to be better rebounding. Hearing Noelle Quinn say that, like I can hear her voice saying that right now in my head. It feels like more reality than a trend, honestly. Or if it is a trend, it's a damning trend, right? So, yeah, man, I was keeping track of this, and then it was really weird because I was texting Christian, because the last like minute of the game just kind of didn't show on the broadcast. It like disappeared. So yeah, great, thanks. Um, so yeah, no, it'll. I am that's my point is I'm very interested to see where they go from this Golden State game, how you respond, how you show up and give effort after a pretty, yeah, I would. Christian mentioned it. I think it was Christian mentioned it being the most embarrassing loss or most frustrating, whatever you want to use to describe it since the Phoenix. I'll get to you. The Phoenix game. I would say it's considering the team. Again, the Mercury, that roster, like I don't know where people had them. It feels like people preseason had them in different spaces. That's a very talented roster. They have really reshaped that in a fascinating form. I try to not give that franchise too much credit considering the issues they have. But yeah, I would 100% say this loss is more damning, more frustrating, more egg on your face than that Phoenix game. So we'll go to raised hands, Rowan.
Not to be a dead horse here, but I'm like, the more I look at the stats, just the more like yikes the game was. Like I didn't realize, the Valkyries had more turnovers than the Storm. They also only shot 16 from three compared to the Storm's 30. Like there aren't many excuses that you can make when you have, they also, I mean, they they somehow had 5 more second chance points than the Storm. However, they had more turnovers. So there are just so many missed opportunities there that I'm sure that, I mean, I'd be interested to actually ask if that did seem like an effort thing, because that seems like so much of, especially last season, what the emphasis was, oh, there's not enough effort here. And I'd just be interested uh, if that was any of it. I also think it's interesting, only four bench turnovers, or, well, sorry, only four bench rebounds from the Storm against the Valkyries as well. So that's, I don't know, just adding even more fuel to the fire.
I guess my thing is, if this was any other stat, like steals, assists, three pointers, free throws. These are all things that you can work around to get there, right? An assist, a pass made to a player that makes it within 3 seconds. That's an assist. Okay, cool. You can work around to get the assist. You can work around to get the steal. You can, scheme it up. You can't scheme up rebounding. Rebounding is literally it's a hustle stat. You want it or you don't. And there's just so many instances throughout the season already that I'm thinking like, is anyone going to put their arms up and grab the ball? I mean, they're just looking at it, and this isn't just one player. This is the entire team. There's no way in the world that Zaya Cook should be coming into games, and sometimes when she does come in, and be the most energetic player on the court. That is a problem. Yeah, she's had a nickname, the Energizer Bunny, for a while now, but like your bench player should not have the most juice. Like when Erica was coming off the bench, literally, I called her a godsend a couple times this season because if she did come off the bench in those third and fourth quarters, they're not winning. Like there's been so many other players that have played that role. Erica, Zaya, Dominique in certain instances, especially in that Minnesota game where she kind of kept Fee on lock. I think Dominique Monga kept Fee to like 2 for 7 shooting. Everybody else was like 4 for 9 or something like that. I think I saw that stat. So I'm just thinking like, at least that was in the fourth quarter. I think that was in the fourth quarter. The most of the time when Don played. But yeah, there's no excuse for that, you know?
Now that I'm looking at it, for some reason, some of the stats are not lining up. So if I'm saying the wrong stats, I'm sorry. So one of these has 20 turnovers, one of them has 18. So if I get the stats wrong, I'm doing my best with what I have, but I don't know.
Yeah, the WNBA stats page is always kind of
Yep.
wonky, so I just
Yep.
go with the box score because the box score is usually right compared to the side stats.
Yeah,
But they
so
did have,
it still was Golden State was more turnovers. Either way, it was either 20 or 18. I don't know which one.
Yeah, man. So I don't know. That's what's sticking out to me is how they come back from this game, how they, kind of push forward because you've got players who are, you've got solid three legitimate candidates for an all-star appearance. Sky, NECA, Gabby. Like if Izzy keeps going, I think it'll be tough. Erica's been given a strong chance, but given the guard play in this league, right? Like so, you've got some really good talent there. Yeah, as you mentioned, it shouldn't be Zaya Cook bringing that energy. I will say though, uh, in that Golden State game, Skylar the only one in double? No, there's only one other player in double digits, but Skylar was clearing away the top scorer for Seattle with 21 and had some really tough buckets down the stretch. So, I mean, that's your point guard doing things she needs to do, right? So, is there anything else for tomorrow's game in Los Angeles that either of you have wanted to bring up? Because yeah, we had that episode, that coffee table that we did, Rowan and I, but obviously it's been a little bit since we had our last episode. This is probably one of the more regular shows that we do since the 2025 calendar year started. So we've been here pretty regularly. But yeah, anything either of you, if you want to raise hands, want to get off your chest, so to say, before we get on out of here.
I mean, the only thing I can think of, I can't find my raise hands feature, excuse me. But the only thing I can think of is we didn't really talk about what we thought about what the Storm got for Lee, which was two draft picks. I shouldn't have started this conversation because I don't have the exact number of what the draft picks were. But I know that I see Christian's mouth moving, but I do not see. I can't hear it.
I was so sorry, it was second round pick and a third round pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, And, I think, I mean, my only thought was just that, I feel like sometimes, especially when you have a player like Li Yueru that everyone, knows is a really good player. I feel like sometimes when you're trading for picks that you have no idea who's even going to be in the draft, who is going to be a 2027 third round draft. You have no idea, how the college scene is going to play out in the next couple of years. So I feel like sometimes it's hard to hear that you get a draft pick because it's harder to see the exact, exchange. Maybe in 2027 we'll be saying, why did the Storm ever honor Li Yueru's trade request? Who knows? But I mean, I think as Christian was saying before we started recording, the 2026 and 2027 drafts are very strong. Also, we know that with the CBA, changing in 2026, who knows what the roster is even going to look like at all. So having a draft pick could be a good thing to have when, it seems like it's basically going to be a whole new roster. And, if you're trying to construct a roster, you might as well have some draft picks there too. So, yeah, overall, I think it's going to be hard to see how the exchange is in the short term, but in the long term, maybe we'll revisit it in 2027. Maybe we'll still have our roundtable in 2027. But yeah, I don't know. Interested in thoughts on that too.
Let's see. So yeah, the lead trade, I think that second round pick could be between anywhere between I think a top 15 pick, if I'm not mistaken, from what I've read. There's certain things that have to happen, of course, for that to happen. But if that does come into play, these next couple of drafts are so deep, you have a really good chance of getting a quality player. You know, let's say there's a Sinai Fagan sitting there. You take that player. I mean, you play them more than the Sparks do. I don't understand why she can't get playing garbage time. Kind of pisses me off sometimes. Not gonna lie to you. You would think being down 30, down 40 to a championship contender would be the perfect time for your rookie center to get some real minutes. But hey, I'm not in Lynn Roberts' head, so I don't know. But three things for the Storm to look out for tomorrow have to look out for. The Sparks average the second most free throw attempts in the league right now. I think they're top five in makes. Do not foul. I mean, it's going to happen, but Seattle has an issue with fouling really early in the game. I think they're top six as far as first quarter fouls. That that can't be the case against the Sparks, right? They are the fourth best team as far as 3-point shooting. Perimeter defense is going to have to be lost. Skyler, Eric Wheeler, sorry, Cook, Gabby, they're going to have to be under 8 games against the Sparks. That is a team that shoots pretty well, and they're not as bad as advertised, but they are not a pleasant watch to the least. Um, they average, what was it? 1 second. They average the fourth most points in the paint in the league right now. Seattle gives up the fifth most. So points in the paint, free throw line, and I just forgot 3-point shooting. Those are the three areas Seattle has to watch out for. If you want to win the game, you have to win all three of those areas.
Yeah, no, it'll be pretty interesting. I mean, I guess remembering what Rakia Jackson had a pretty big night a couple games ago. I think Christian and I talked. Oh yeah, because it was the same day as the Lynx game. Um, Paige went off for 35. Rakia had her big game, and then yeah, then Seattle had that Minnesota win. So um, yeah, that'll be interesting to see. And they're still without what is Ray Burrell still out? They're still without Ray Burrell, and then Cameron Brink. So I don't know. Sparks are a fascinating team.
Before we get out of here, no games today. There's 6 games tomorrow. There's two 6 p.m. starts, there's three 7 p.m. starts, and there's one 9 p.m. start. Listen, I in the past I wasn't really a big fan. People always complaining about the schedule, right? Because it wasn't that bad. This year is terrible. 6 games in one day.
Well,
Like,
then why do we have most of the time when there are three games, why are they all at the same time? How
why?
many hours? We have 24 hours in a day. Please.
And people have explained it to me before. Oh, it's the broadcasting partners. It's not the league. You think I don't know that? First of all, you're being condescending. That's one. Two, if the league really wanted to put their foot down and demand better windows, they could. The NBA and NFL do it all the time. How many times do you see NFL games getting flexed because it's boring? No one wants to see Bears and Jaguars. That's why I said 12 p.m. and not 3:15. I mean, listen, the W is a long way from having that kind of power with advertisers and fellow media rights and things of that nature. But we have to do better, man. This is counterproductive to the game, to the fans, to the players. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but somebody asked Ezzy or Neka about this last year, and they were like, well, it's kind of hard to watch film and watch games when there's 5 in 1 day. And I was like, she said, I think it was Neka, because she was like, it's kind of difficult because they're training and then they're on the plane. Like, it's kind of difficult.
I do not remember her saying that, but that is such a good point.
Yeah. No, so I guess both in Stormland and in the league, there's a long way to go for things. Just different types. So yeah, man, no, it's always great to have this. Even when I sound like and I got Brett Adam looking over at me. Uh,
My man in the prayer closet right now.
Pretty much. It's just like doing ASMR over here. To wait till you next time. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, were you going to watch the Seattle Storm away games this year?
Away games. Well, Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, so I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See you all here.